Let's see how Miss Independent gets back now. Leo's voice, slick with mockery, slithered from the window of the departing Land Rover. The vehicle plunged into the chaotic river of Marrakesh traffic, its horn blaring a final, triumphant note. The exhaust fumes and the cackles of my husband's investors hung in the thick, spice-laden air. I stood paralyzed, the vibrant chaos of the Gemma El Fna square swirling around me like a fever dream. The argument we'd had in the cramped rug shop about his cavalier attitude towards a risky new venture had dissolved into this surreal nightmare. His last act, a gesture of pure, calculated cruelty. "He's coming back," I murmured, a desperate mantra against the rising tide of panic. Snake charmers played their hypnotic tunes, merchants hawked their wares, and the scent of roasting meat filled the air. This was just a scare tactic. But as the minutes bled into an hour, the vibrant colors of the souk began to feel menacing. The setting sun casting long, predatory shadows across the ancient walls of a city whose name I could barely pronounce. When I'd quietly questioned the wisdom of pouring our savings into an unproven AI startup during dinner, I never dreamed it would lead to this. Julian's friends, tech bros celebrating their latest funding round on a cultural trip to Morocco, had been pouring him cocktails and praise in equal measure. "She's always trying to clip your wings, man," Simon had slurred, signaling for another bottle. When I tried to guide Julian away, his anger, cold and precise, had flared. The fight was swift and brutal, a volcano of unspoken resentments. "You have your wallet, right?" he'd asked with a chilling smirk before climbing into the waiting vehicle. "You're the smart one, Clara. You'll figure it out." Night fell, and the vibrant square transformed into a labyrinth of shadows. I counted my dirhams, the equivalent of about $90, not enough for a flight from Marrakesh back to our life in San Francisco, barely enough for a place to sleep. My credit cards, of course, were in the wallet Julian had insisted on carrying for me in his more secure travel bag. I found the cheapest riad I could, a tiny room tucked deep within the Medina's maze, with a lumpy mattress and a single dim bulb. The woman who led me there, Fatima, spoke no English, but her eyes, filled with a weary understanding, told me she'd seen stories like mine before. "He's blocked my number." The words were a choked whisper in the silence of the room. I stared at my phone. 27 calls to Julian, all rerouted to voicemail. My frantic texts showed a single checkmark, delivered but not read. I tried Leo, blocked. Simon, blocked. A cold dread, sharper than any fear I'd felt before, washed over me. This wasn't a drunken mistake. It was a planned, deliberate act of humiliation. Sleep was a battlefield, fought in fits and starts between frantic checks of my phone and waves of suffocating panic. By morning, a fragile hope had taken root. Julian would show up, a bouquet of overpriced roses in hand, full of apologies he didn't mean, ready to blame my overreaction for his prank. I would be furious, but the relief of returning to our curated life where he was the celebrated tech founder and I was the supportive wife who'd shelved her graphic design career for his would be enough. But he didn't come. The second day, I rationed my dwindling cash, buying a piece of flatbread that I ate while circling the square, scanning every tour group, every luxury hotel for a sign of them. By dusk, I knew. They had moved on, likely to their spa retreat in the Atlas Mountains, leaving me behind. On the third day, a kind tea seller who'd watched me nursing the same glass for hours used a translation app on his phone to direct me to the tourist police. The officer, a man with a tired but compassionate face, took my report with a sigh that suggested this was not the first time he'd heard such a tale. But with no proof of a crime beyond my word, I left with nothing more than a case number and a sympathetic shrug. That afternoon, I stood before the glittering window of a pawn shop in the new city. With trembling fingers, I unclasped the vintage gold watch from my wrist, a 25th birthday gift from Julian, a timeless piece, he'd called it. The shopkeeper, a shrewd man with kind eyes, offered me a fraction of its value, but it was enough. Enough for the next step, whatever that might be.
"Call your family," the man suggested in French as he counted out the bills. I nodded, the lie catching in my throat. Calling my family meant admitting my perfect marriage was a sham, meant hearing my brothers told you so about Julian's controlling nature, meant facing the pity in my friends' eyes. The bus station was a cacophony of noise and destinations. The departure board listed places I'd only dreamed of. A bus to the coast, a ferry to Spain, a train to... where? A place Julian and his friends would never think to look. My finger hovered over my best friend's contact info. One call and she'd wire me the money for a flight home. One call and I'd be back in the gilded cage I'd helped Julian build, the one where I'd made myself smaller and smaller to make room for his ego. A memory surfaced, Julian laughing as he deleted the design portfolio from my laptop. "Why do you need this old stuff, babe?" he'd asked. "We don't need the money, and I need you focused on our future." At the time, I'd let it go. But sitting in that chaotic station, I saw the fence for what it was. "Where to, miss?" the ticket agent asked, her brow furrowed with concern as she watched me stare blankly at the board. "Portugal," I said, the word tasting of freedom. "The furthest north you can get me." 14 hours later, I stumbled off a train in the Douro Valley, my body aching with fatigue that was more than just physical. The air, clean and sweet with the scent of damp earth and river water, was a balm. Terraced vineyards, ancient and majestic, climbed the steep hillsides. My phone had died hours ago. A hollow ache of hunger gnawed at my stomach, and the enormity of my situation pressed down on me. I was adrift. 3 days of emotional whiplash had left me cycling between white-hot fury at Julian and a strange, thrilling flicker of what felt like liberation. My remaining cash would get me a room for a night, maybe 2. After that, I had nothing. No plan, no contacts, no Portuguese beyond obrigada. But as I watched the sun dip below the rolling hills, painting the Douro River in hues of copper and rose, a profound calm settled in my soul. Julian had wanted to teach me a lesson in dependence. He had, quite by accident, set me free. The Portuguese sun was relentless. I walked away from the small village, my city dwellers' sandals rubbing my feet raw. My water was long gone, and the combination of dehydration and emotional drain made the world swim. The terraced vines, heavy with dusty green grapes, seemed to shimmer and warp. Just before my legs gave out, the ground rose to meet me. Darkness crept in at the edges of my vision. So this is it, I thought, with a strange sense of detachment. Abandoned in one country, only to die in another. I closed my eyes, surrendering to the crushing weight of it all. "Minha senhora!" A woman's voice, sharp with alarm, pierced the fog. Weathered, gentle hands turned me over. An elderly face, framed with silver hair, swum into view. Her eyes, the color of rich earth, were wide with concern. She spoke quickly in Portuguese, patting my face before pressing a water canteen to my lips. The cool liquid was life itself. She helped me sit up, introducing herself as Anna. I whispered my own name, Clara. Anna, though small, was surprisingly strong, supporting my weight as she guided me up a steep, cobbled path toward a stone farmhouse, a quinta, nestled among the vines. The kitchen smelled of baking bread and dried herbs. She settled me at a heavy wooden table and called out. A man appeared, his face as brown and weathered as the land, a kind mustache gracing his upper lip. "Mateo," Anna said, introducing her husband. He nodded, his eyes curious but not unkind. Anna placed a bowl of hearty soup in front of me. The aroma made my stomach rumble, and for the first time in days, Anna smiled. The evening was a surreal pantomime of gestures and broken phrases. I tried to explain, but eventually the words dissolved into tears. Anna simply nodded, her hand patting mine, as if she understood the heart of the story, if not the details. They gave me their daughter's old room, a simple space with a narrow bed and a hand-stitched quilt. I collapsed into a sleep so deep it was like a return to the womb.
I awoke to birdsong and a scent of strong coffee. Folded at the foot of my bed was a simple cotton dress, old but clean. In the kitchen, Anna beamed on my arrival, handing me a mug of coffee and a thick slice of bread drizzled with golden olive oil. Daylight brought with it a wave of embarrassment. These strangers had saved me. I had to pay them, explain, move on.
Using a translation app on my now charged phone, I tried to express my gratitude and my intent to leave. Anna's face fell. She shook her head fiercely, pointing to the rain now streaming down the windows, and then to my blistered feet. "Fike," she insisted. "Stay, rest." Over the next few days, every attempt I made to leave was met with her gentle but firm resistance. Once, with my bag in hand, she stood at the door, her expression so genuinely wounded that I felt a pang of guilt. She led me to a small, carved wooden box, opening it to show me photos of a young woman with her eyes and Matteo's smile. "Katerina," she said softly, then pointed to a map of Canada. Her eyes welled with tears as she held her hands out, indicating a child. "Netto," she managed in broken English. "Grandson, no see." I understood. I was a stand-in for the daughter she missed, a temporary filler for an empty space in her home. My heart ached for her. I slowly returned my bag to its hook. A new rhythm began. Anna taught me how to collect eggs and hang laundry to catch the valley breeze. Matteo showed me how to prune the dormant vines, his gnarled hands guiding mine with infinite patience. The work was hard. My body, accustomed to spin classes and Pilates, screamed in protest. Calluses formed on my hands. But with each day, my muscles grew stronger and the frantic, looping thoughts about Julian began to quiet, replaced by the simple, grounding tasks of the vineyard. In the evenings, sitting on the stone terrace as Matteo smoked his pipe, I found a peace I hadn't known was possible. The betrayal was still a raw wound, but here, surrounded by ancient vines and the quiet dignity of this life, it began to feel less like an ending and more like a new beginning. 2 weeks later, as we were sorting through early harvest grapes, Anna studied my face. "Casa?" she asked slowly. "You want go home?" She made a plain gesture. "America?" The question struck me. Home. The word conjured our minimalist San Francisco condo with its view of the bay and its cold designer furniture. It also brought Julian's subtle control into sharp relief. His management of our finances, his casual dismissal of my career, his isolation of me from my friends. Tears I didn't know I still had streamed down my face. Words tumbled out, a torrent of English she couldn't understand, but an emotion that needed no translation. I told her everything. When she finished, she patted my hand. She pointed to her heart, then to the vineyard stretching out before us, and then finally to me. The message was unmistakable. I had a place here. "Work," I said, my voice thick. I mimicked Matteo tending the vines. "I stay. I work." Anna's smile was like the sunrise over the Douro. She squeezed my hand and went back to sorting grapes as if we just settled the most natural thing in the world. My real education began the next morning. Matteo woke me before dawn, handing me a pair of his daughter's old work boots. He led me into the vineyard, explaining the intricate art of the harvest. My first attempts were clumsy, earning patient corrections. By midday, my shoulders ached and my hands were raw. "City hands," Anna teased, applying a soothing homemade salve. "Tomorrow, better." And she was right. My hands toughened, my body strengthened, and my eye learned to spot the perfect cluster of grapes. I learned about terroir, about the subtle differences in soil and sun that shaped the wine's character. I learned the science and the soul of fermentation in their small adega, the winery. In Anna's kitchen, I, who had once prided myself on complex recipes from foodie blogs, learned the art of intuitive cooking. My first attempts at baking their traditional bread were disastrous. "Pratica," Anna would say, tasting even my most burnt offerings. "All learning is waste." Her acceptance of my imperfection was a revelation. My body changed. The weight I'd carried, a soft armor of unhappiness, melted away, replaced by lean muscle. My skin, once pampered with expensive serums, glowed from honest sweat and simple soap. The woman in the mirror was a stranger, tanned, strong, more substantial. My Portuguese improved, and I began to connect with the community. Sophia, a potter with a stall at the weekly market, became my friend. Her sharp wit and pragmatic view of the world were a comfort. "This husband," she said one day as we packed up our wares, "you never say his name." "Julian," I said, the name feeling alien on my tongue. "His name is Julian." "And he never looked for you?" "I don't know," I admitted. "I turned off my old phone." Sophia raised an eyebrow. "Maybe it is time to look. Not for him, for you, to close the door." Her words echoed in my mind. That night, I connected my old phone to the Quinta's slow Wi-Fi. Hundreds of emails flooded my inbox. Concerned messages from friends I'd been forced to neglect. A pang of shame hit me. Then I saw a thread from a former colleague, a creative director I admired. She'd recommended me for a remote consulting gig with an ethical branding agency. The last email, dated 2 weeks prior, said the position was still open. Before I could process this bridge to my old life, another sender's name made my blood run cold. Julian Croft. The subject? "I know where you are." It had arrived 3 hours ago. My heart hammered against my ribs as I clicked it open. Clara. It took a private investigator and a beta version of my new facial recognition software, but I found you in that Portuguese backwater. This little drama has gone on long enough. I'm coming to bring you home. My flight lands in Porto on Friday. Be ready.
3 days. The room tilted. He wasn't apologetic. He was furious. He wasn't coming to reconcile. He was coming to collect his property. I stumbled downstairs, the phone clutched in my fist. Anna looked up from her account books, her smile vanishing when she saw my face. "Bad news?" she asked softly. "Julian," I choked out. "He's coming. On Friday." Anna's eyes hardened. She reached under a stack of papers and slid an envelope across the table. "Good timing," she said. "I was waiting for the right moment." Inside were legal documents, in Portuguese and English. A partnership agreement. It gave me a 1/3 share of the vineyard, effective immediately. Tears blurred my vision. This wasn't charity. It was a foundation. It was earned. "You choose what happens on Friday," Anna said, her voice firm. "You have a home here, a business, friends." She pointed to the phone in my hand. "That man, he does not decide for you anymore." The days leading up to Friday were not spent in fearful packing, but in quiet fortification. I spoke with a local solicitor who drafted divorce papers. I emailed my former colleague and accepted the remote consulting position. I wrote back to the friends Julian had tried to erase from my life. Friday dawned, bright and clear. I was in the Adega with Mateo, testing the acidity of a new vintage, when the sound of a powerful engine disturbed the peace. Anna appeared at the door. "He is here." My heart pounded, a frantic drum against my ribs. I wiped my hands on my apron and stepped out onto the sun-drenched terrace. He stood beside a gleaming black Mercedes, his designer sunglasses and expensive linen shirt, a stark contrast to the rustic beauty of the Quinta. He looked smaller here, less impressive against the ancient stone and terraced earth. He scanned the scene with a look of profound distaste, and for a moment he didn't see me. "Julian," I said. My voice was steady. He turned. The shock on his face was a pleasure I hadn't expected. His gaze raked over me, from my dirt-caked boots to my simple dress, lingering on my tanned arms and my hair, tied back in a simple knot. I saw the disbelief warring with recognition in his eyes. This was not the woman he had left in Marrakesh. "Clara? My God!"